Hi, I wanted to start this video wearing glasses because they make me feel very focused. It is so late at night, but I am determined to post this video because the other video that I'm working very hard on, it is not ready to be released to the world. It is fashionably late and it is taking its time. So this video is something that's been on my heart because a lot of you guys, you may be dance teachers, coaches, instructors, directors, mentors, owners, alright? A lot of you guys are like me. You're preparing to return to work and to bring together a group of young people to have lots of fun. How do you have lots of fun? We gotta have a bunch of games. And being that we are living in a post-COVID world, we want to be mindful to have games that can be played without children touching each other. Obviously, it's inevitable that kids are going to want to touch everything. They are going to want to touch each other, wrestle, and they're always wanting to explore. And kids were not made for social distancing. That is not their thing, but I know the world is changing. So with that being said, some games that we know we're probably not going to play is, and I'm reading off my little sheet, my little handy dandy notebook. Let me take these glasses off now. Ta-da! Hi. Okay, I'll take them off all the way. Okay, so I'm reading from my little notebook and I'm unashamed. You guys get to see into my blueprints. So what did I write down for games that are not going to be, okay. Yeah, so games that involve balls, we're going to try to minimize and avoid. Tag-based games, and everyone knows that tag-based games are the best games for kids if you are like a mentor, if you run camps, because it's what kids do best. They run around, and all of us teachers, us losing tag is a big hit. But don't worry, some other games that we're going to have to eliminate are partner-based games. Games where, ring around the rosy, like wheelbarrow racing where you hold your partner's leg. They're just a bunch of partner-based, touching games, patty cakes, and all that good stuff that we just won't be able to incorporate into our lesson plans. But fear not, here we go. So the first 10 games are games you've probably played. Actually, they're like the top 10. I know they're games you probably know, but I'm going to repeat them because you may have forgotten some of these games, or maybe you actually didn't think of them. So our first game is the number one game that every single teacher, whether you teach dance, gymnastics, acro, whatever, if you teach little kids, boom, freeze dance. Yes, guys, we can still play freeze dance, in my opinion, because we don't have to worry about, as long as we're all appropriately spaced, we don't have to worry about, us jumping on top of each other. I've never seen anybody play freeze dance and then start dancing with a partner. Think about that, have you? Oh, and if you hear noise in the background, my mate is video gaming right now, so you may hear some fun language, we'll put it like that. The second game is find the color. So you want to say, hey kids, can you find this color? And go find an object that is that color. And you can spice up that game. Everyone has a different name for that game, but that is something that is appropriate. ABC-based games. By ABC-based games, I mean like this. When you kind of have like kids usually like in a circular format or in a line, and you have each student, they're assigned a letter. So if the first is A, you might say, all right, what is some gymnastics skill that starts with A? Aerial, and then they'll demonstrate it. What's a gymnastics skill that starts with B? Back bend, and then they'll demonstrate it. And as long as the skills, don't need spotting, depending on where you stand with spotting, then that can be a really fun game. 4 of favorite is red light, green light. We can definitely make a variation of red light, green light where we don't have to actually tag the person, but maybe just make it to like a line instead, like once you cross over the line, the first person to cross over the line instead of the traditional way of playing. 5, limbo. 6, Simon Says. Doesn't need any explanation. For number 7, the mirror game. So the mirror game is when you have two kids that are facing each other, and one is the leader and the other is the follower, and they kind of create some movement patterns. Maybe they'll do a skill like a gymnastics or dance skill, and that is something that if you appropriately space everyone out, you can still play. Number 8 is the jump rope game. I don't know the name of it. I think it's called helicopter, maybe, but it's when you take the jump rope and you kind of circle. Okay. It's when you take the jump rope in your hand and you kind of trail it along the floor in a circular pattern, and you have students jump over that. So that is a fun game with equipment. Number 9, I Spy. That one's more of a calm game, but that can be a great quiet time game. Number 10 is going to be any racing-oriented game where you're going to have kids, running back and forth, maybe in their own lane, however you want to divide that. At our gym location, we have like little potato sacks, so, even incorporating some props, some manipulatives that can be used on a personal level where you don't have to worry about your children swapping or cross-contaminating or any other post-COVID sins. Number 11 is a theater game. It's called ZipZap Zop. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but once you understand and play the game, it's pretty simple and a lot of fun. I found this is really challenging for younger kids, but it's a lot of fun for older kids. And this is a game I learned in a theater class where you go zip, zap, zop, and you have to use your focus and you have to concentrate to be able to keep the pattern flowing randomly throughout the circle. If you mess up the phrasing or hesitate, you get out, or whatever your gym's policy is. I know some gyms don't believe in like being out. So, to each their own. Number 12, traditional charades. Come on, who doesn't love charades? Number 13, there is another name of this game that is well known, but I don't care much for that name, so I'm going to call it Follow the Leader. It's a game you probably played where one person, exits the room, and the lead instructor will select a student to be the leader, and all the other kids will copy the leader, and it is then the job of the child who stepped out to come into the circle and to try to identify the person who is originating all of the movements. So that game's a lot of fun. So we're going to call it Follow the Leader, but there are other names for that game. So these next couple of games are kind of like card-based games. One game that you can play is Blackjack. I was able to find this large deck of cards that are the cards are like this big, so they're super easy to see. And just having the teacher kind of be like the dealer, and you can kind of rename Blackjack to whatever fits your gym. Of course, you can have bingo. You can have the students make their own bingo boards, their own bingo chips, and get creative with that, and then kind of have a bingo game. You can even look into laminating bingo boards so you can easily disinfect the boards after they're used. A game that I've played with my students in the past is Giant Memory. So Memory, the card game where you flip it over and you have to try to make a pair. You can have a version of that where the instructor is going to do all of the flipping, and you have your matches on one side, and then I like to put numbers on the top so that way you don't mix up which ones. So you might say 13 and 5. Oh, yay, it's a match. So that one's a lot of fun, and I actually have used paper plates in the past. So just big paper plates and kind of sprinkling them all over the floor was something that worked for me. And of course, you can do another variation if you want to incorporate a laminator to have that surface that you can disinfect after each use if you feel like your students are going to be persistent and really wanting to touch the equipment. For number 17, it's the name game. And the name game, everyone's played it. If you've been to any event where you need an icebreaker, one person says their name, and then the person next to them says their name, and then the person before them, and then the person next to that person says their name, and then the person before them, and the person before them, and it just goes on and on. So you can easily do that name-based game and have the kids attach a movement to kind of create a dance sequence. Number 18 is what I call Super Bean Ball. For Super Bean Ball, it's going to be like basketball, but you use bean bags. And each student will be responsible for their own personal beanbag, and you can then set up in your space a bunch of basketball obstacle course. Maybe you'll stack up a couple of hula hoops on some sort of hanging apparatus, and you can just kind of get creative, have some laundry baskets, kind of spread throughout the room. You get creative, and that is a fun game. And when you play with the beanbags, it's great because beanbags are really light, and unlike bouncy balls, they don't bounce around, so you don't have to worry about your students running and grabbing each other's equipment. You can kind of have some sort of faith, if you instruct properly, that they'll be able to be responsible for their personal beanbag. For number 19, I'm going to lump together kind of soccer-oriented games. If your facility chooses to use balls in a group setting, that is your choice, but of course you want to go like a hands-free version. So that's easy when you're doing soccer-based games, and something that you can even consider is like playing mum ball, but with your feet. Or you can even play concentration, let's play concentration. No repeats or hesitation. I go first, you go second. Category is, and then you have a category, and everyone has to, when it's your turn, you have to name something, a noun that is from that category. So playing that with a soccer ball instead of a handheld ball is another alternative. Going off of that soccer thing, considering like a hockey-based game, something where students have their personal stick, and if that's something you feel comfortable doing, you can incorporate hockey-based games. Bouncing off of that, when I worked at a nursing home, one of my managers had a game that she introduced to me called Noodle Ball. For Noodle Ball, you had a pool noodle, and you had to then bat a balloon. If you want to use a balloon, use your judgment, but really just kind of reinforcing like, hey, you only can use your noodles, you can't use your hands. Your hands have to stay on your noodle the whole time. So it's called Noodle Ball, and it is so much fun. And it should be pretty cheap because it's you can come by some pool noodles. You can even cut them in half, so to make extra. Jumping forward to 21, having story-based games. For example, when I was in elementary school, my dance teacher played a game called Shape Shop, and she told us the story about these shapes. And she would say, there's big shapes, and there's little shapes, and there's silly shapes. And it was our job as the students to kind of personify the words that she was saying. So just kind of like maybe storytelling and having a theatrical based element where you have the students recreate the words that you are saying. So that's a really fun game. For 22, consider what I would call a foot maze, and that will be if you have different colored tape, or if you can like draw little designs on your tape, you can kind of create different formats and formations of the tape on the floor, and then have your students trying to follow the maze like pattern till they reach the other side, and then they can just use their feet to kind of skedaddle and skadoodle all around the maze, and that will be a really fun game. Similar to that is going to be Spider's Web game, so viewers' discretion is advised. However you want to set this up, if you think it's something that'll work for you, you can kind of take like maybe some yarn or some other sort of string or hanging material, and you kind of connect it to different pieces of the wall, and then you'll have your students trying to maneuver through the web, the spider's web, without touching it, or you can pretend to be like a secret agent who is trying to make it past the security detection system laser beam thing that we all seen in the 2000 cartoons. So for 23, you can consider using an Xbox Connect to be able to connect to the TV to do games like Just Dance and other games where you can just move your body without actually having to hold a controller. That would be a lot of fun, and it makes me think about the Wii board, which I wish we still had. The Wii board was the best. Like, the last game is a game that I kind of made up while I was brainstorming all this, and this game is what I will call lineup. I've never done this with my students, but I have to try it. And it's going to kind of be inspired by like a police lineup where you try to identify a person. I know, super positive. Maybe you can come up with a better, more positive, age-appropriate name. But you would have, let's say, 2 students come and stand in front of your class body, your student body, and then you'll say, all right, take a good look. See if you can remember what they look like, what their hair looks like. And then you say, okay, thank you, students. Can you please go behind? Maybe you'll have like 2 rainbow mats set up. Can you go behind your curtains, your secret curtains? And then you'll say, all right, students, now that our 2 friends are behind the secret curtain, I need someone to tell me who had a ponytail. Was it Kayla or was it Brenda? And maybe one of them had their hair up or hair down. I'm like, oh, it was Kayla, it was Brenda. Blah, 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 blah. You can imagine how that will play out. So that'll be a lot of fun.